Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Gindis, and I'm very excited to be here and teach about Model UN opening speeches. After that, we're also going to talk about position papers, and then you're going to have breakout rooms with your chairs and your mentors to work on these things. So,
Daniel, till a
yes,
quarter to eight. We
till
start breakout rooms at a quarter to eight, okay?
okay, till a quarter eight. So we have about an hour to do all this, which is not a lot of time. This is usually in
No more.
multi.
Okay, you can take a bit more
Oh, that's it.
time. It's
Bronya, what, okay. So, can people please write the school? Wonderful. Thank you, Alana, Oel Shem, Raziel. Great. If everyone can please write their school at the end, that will help give a bit of context. Okay. So we also have Yuval here, the Secretary General. They've put a lot of work into this. We're very excited to see you all in Lod at the end of this month. So, let's start again. So, MUN speeches. Okay, so right now we're going to work on learning how to represent our country using speeches. The opening speech should be about 60 seconds. That should be about 100 words. So whoever's taking note, your speech should be about 100 words. Maybe you can do 120. Maybe your natural speech style is 90. It doesn't really matter to, what exactly is. I'd say best to average on 100, because when you speak 100 words a minute, then you are speaking at a very slow, comfortable pace. If you speak really fast and try to put many words together, not everyone will understand you. And you being understood is very, very important in an MUN opening speech. In fact, I would go as far as to say that if people don't understand you, it doesn't matter how much you pack in your speech. So the first thing we want to know is when we're writing our opening speech, with everything we learn, we need to speak slowly and clearly, or people won't see how brilliant we are, and they're not going to understand the ideas we have. What? Someone said? Someone said something? No. Okay. Once I guess need to move the background of the screen here. Okay, so that's our goal, is to learn how to give speeches. Whoever's letting people in, please keep letting people in. Okay, so all right, learn how to represent our countries using speeches. Okay, here we go. Okay, our speeches. First of all, is to show the goal of this first speech. It's to show clear action ideas. Let our allies know that we're on the same page as them, and let our opponents know that we are opposing them. Okay, for Model UN, there are 5 parts to Model UN, depending on your clubs and societies. First, we research our position, then we speak, we find a group, we write down our ideas, and we vote. So there's reading, there's speaking, oral communication, and there is writing. And these 3 things show the different ways that we can collect information and also distribute information. The way we would say something and the way we would write it might not always be the same, but the writing needs to be clear, it needs to commit to something, and then we get others to vote. So Model UN is a diplomatic activity that we'd call a collaborative competition. While we're all trying to get our country's interests to be achieved, we are at the same time working with others. We need to vote on it together. We usually need 50% plus 1 to pass our idea. Okay, so these speeches, these are our first impressions. They come over here. First, we research, we come in the committee. We do something called roll call. Can someone tell us what roll call is? Anyone, just open your mic or I will call someone.
I'll say it. A roll call is when the chairs call each and every single country, and the country has to get their placket up and say here and voting.
Excellent. Okay, so anyone want to elaborate on that?
A roll call is when is typically at the start of the committee or every day. It's the chairs making sure that all the countries, all the delegates who are supposed to be there are there, and which countries are present and which are present and voting.
Okay, wonderful. So both answers here are correct. I also want to say hello to some of the teachers that I see. Hi, Dina. Nice to see you. Hi, Esty. It's been a while. Okay, so our opening statements are the first speech. Sorry, roll call is our first place. As they said, you say present or present and voting. You're letting the committee know that you're there, and the chairs then count how many people are here and what countries are in the room. Roll call can be an important place to see that an important country isn't around. But for the purposes of our discussion over here, the important part is that the way you say present and voting, which you should generally say if you're not sure what to say, should be done with a smile. Take your hand up, present and voting. This is your first impression to all these people you did not meet. And anyone who knows me or has heard my workshop before, I say that you only get one chance to make a first impression. It's often done before you say present and voting, how you walk in the classroom. Do you have confidence? Do you seem scared? Do you talk to people next to you? I can say for me and, competitive international model UN, when I came to a new conference, wherever I sat in the room, immediately I talked to people in front, behind, left, right, the people to both sides, made sure we were all friendly before we started. But for everybody else, or for most of them, unless you meet them in the hallway before, present and voting is your first impression. And if you do it well, with a smile and energy, unless you're doing it in a particularly unique way, or, present and voting and God Save the King, because you have like a British flag or whatever else it might be, that's usually not going to be remembered by people. But you know who they're going to remember? The ones who, when they say, Cuba, and they go, oh, present and voting, seem half asleep, that they're going to remember for the first round. That's not the kind of impression that you want. However, once you do present and voting, you do it well with a smile, people then want to hear what you're going to say. And that's where the opening speech comes in. And that's going to be the focus of the first part of what we have. So things we know so far: smile, slow and clear, 100 words. If your speech is 110 and you finish it in 55 seconds with a stopwatch with breathing and pausing, very important. I learned to speak more slowly because of Model UN. Because when I started speaking at my normal speed to say as much as I could, people didn't understand what I was saying sometimes, especially if they had a different accent or had, other mother tongues. So it's important to speak slowly and clearly, much more than it is to say every word of your first speech, which took sometimes 260 words, and you can't bear what you're going to cut out. If anybody also meets me in a public speaking competition or TED Talks format or one of those, I say that like word count is law. If the competition gives you roughly 300 words per your time and you have 400, you're going to speed, you're going to miss delivery. Not a good thing. Stick to the word count. If you're not sure, 100 words is very, very comfortable. Okay? So, speeches for Model UN, the CIA speech writing formula. I will also post an article in the link for this, people who want to learn more. And this slideshow is available on our website, ioedu.org, which I think Bronya has access to. So, opening speeches. This is our first impression. Make a good one, show research, have good ideas, and show you're a good country to work with. What does CIA stand for? Anybody want to tell me? I know some of you know this.
Clash, information, and action.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay. So clash, information, action. Now, so we don't get overwhelmed as we learn these things. When you do it right, your clash should be one line, one sentence. Information, 2 sentences. Action, 3+ sentences. All right? If we break this down, understand the questions we're asking in Model UN opening speeches. This opening speech is a very powerful formula for communication. One of my students, his mom was a Samankalit in Superfarm, and he wrote her a 7-minute speech using the CIA formula, and it was the best speech at the entire Superfarm conference. It packs a lot of powerful information in a small place. All right? So the clash is what you want to do in one sentence. I want to give a 1-hour Zoom workshop on Model UN speeches. Okay, it's not I want to teach MUN. It's not I want to make students' lives better. It's not let's hang out on Zoom. It's very clear that I want to do a 1-hour workshop teaching Model UN speech writing. Okay, see, that is a clash. Next, information. Why you want to do your clash. This is your background. This is your data. Okay, now your data, Daniel rule, must use a number. Okay, you must use a number. It can be a year, it can be something else, because people can argue with your data. It's harder to argue with numbers. Numbers make you sound smarter. We'll see that in the information section of the slideshow, but trust me, always use a number. Action, how we're going to do the what in at least 3 steps. Because if I'm going to teach everyone opening speech tonight, we assume that it's going to be what? How can I teach everyone how to do an opening speech tonight? Australia, UNODC. How can I teach people speech writing this evening?
Can I say it?
No?
Maybe we can start from example. We can do one speech together.
Okay, we can do one speech here. That's one possibility to work on speech writing. Excellent. What's another way that I can teach speech writing? USA, who? You can say it.
You can show a few examples, maybe.
Right. Excellent. I can show examples.
You can give us the steps to write one.
Right. Let's go with USA IMO. If you're here, what are ways that we can teach opening speeches? All right. This person isn't here. Let's try Molly Sakyum. Are you here? All right. We're trying the off cameras. All right. Let's try Zivaknim, New Zealand. What's a way we can teach opening speeches?
We can, one moment, please. Ma? No. We could try, we can let an example how other people started it. And
All right, beautiful. So we see there are different ways to teach opening speeches. Through examples, we can learn one all together. We can look at openings other people did. And we haven't specified. So when I say I'm teaching opening speeches, it could be any and all of these. It could be on Zoom. It could be me, I don't know, going to Gan Meir and everybody driving there and us, learning it one at a time for all night. We never specified. We assume, we think, opening speeches is a workshop on Zoom, but it doesn't have to be. So if I say I'm going to teach opening speeches for 1 hour for Model UN, I'm doing this because Atid's conference is coming up on the 27th and 28th of November, 2024. And most, let's say 75% of the 350 students coming don't have background. See, bunch of numbers. We're going to, 1, set a time of 6:30 for Zoom, 2, send a link, and 3, in an email that everyone should come join. And everyone will then come and take part in the workshop. Okay, so before that, we could have been meeting in a park. Bronya could have sent a recording. We could have done this through some other medium. Now, our minds can fill this in. People are very smart. This is why in the opening speech, we're not repeating the problem. Do not waste your opening speech telling people what's wrong, which you read in the study guide. Like, it's cool that we actually read something, but it's a waste of your speech. The whole committee knows that you are there to deal with the topic. Let's hear what some of these topics are. Let's go to Karine, UNODC. What are your topics? What is the USODC talking about? UNODC. You're on mute. All right, Karine, UNODC.
yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
My topic is about UNDOC. It's about Haiti security trafficking. It's the teacher.
Okay, wonderful. Are there, okay, who else? Let's see. That's Yundok. Cuba, HSC. What is your topic?
Me?
Yeah.
Can you repeat the question?
What is the topic your committee is discussing?
Vietnam War and Warsaw Pact.
Okay, Vietnam War. Which year?
I might get this wrong. 1968, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, yes.
Well, if not, Secretary General will know. All right, Russia, World Trade Organization. What's the topic you're discussing?
It's a double committee, so I'm more focusing on the Vietnam part.
And what's the other part?
Vietnam War.
And so Vietnam War and what?
And Czechoslovakia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Iran, Russia, World Trade Organization. What's your topic?
It's the future of international trade in a deglobalizing world and mitigating the effect of the Houthis on the global trade.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so we can see here there's a whole range of topics. Now, if we're looking, for example, taking what Russia from the World Trade Organization talk, actually, let's do one more. Nigeria World Health Organization. What topic do you guys have?
Waterborne diseases in natural disasters and preparing for a world without antibiotics.
All right. Okay. Okay, so if we look at these different topics and these different committees, we see that if right now, for example, we're looking at what was the first topic again? World Health Organization. The second one is World Without Antibiotics.
Waterborne diseases in natural disasters.
Okay, so if we're looking to stop waterborne diseases, if we say treating the water, we want to treat the water in a certain place or a certain way, that's not giving the level of detail. We can bring the why, but the why, by the way, shouldn't be repeating the problem here in the study guide. You should make it more specific because some of these topics are very broad. When we're saying we want to check the international impact of the Houthis on international trade, if we're checking this out, we could bribe them. We could pay them a lot of money and maybe they'd stop. It doesn't mean it needs to be a military solution. It doesn't need to be alternative trade route. So if we're saying that we want right now to prevent the Houthis from attacking shipping, we would talk about how, let's say, some other shipping route isn't utilized enough since 2022, since COVID or something. That could be our number. But you want to use your information to make it more specific. Okay, and how we're going to do it. We're going to tell the ships to stop driving through, like going through the Suez Canal and instead to go around, I don't know, the East African coast and reconnect some other way. All right. So our speeches start like this. Dear delegate, country believes we should clash. Go right into it. Do not give long introductions. We're so glad to be here today to discuss the importance of the Houthis' impact on trade. Millions of people aren't getting what they need to quickly enough, from medicines to shoes, because of this impact on trade. We know that. We all read the study guide. And I'll go further and say waterborne diseases. I don't even need to talk about it. We can already make up what this is. We want solutions. Spend your speech focusing on solving the problem. That's what it should be. Okay, not giving background. Okay, for example, dear delegates, Norway believes we should give all the food to North Korea without conditions within 3 months. In November of 2023, North Korea closed 6 foreign embassies. This resource-saving action was done once before in 1990s during the Great Famine that killed 2 to 3 million people. Okay, see? Clash information. It's not a lot of words, but we clearly see what we need to do and why. Okay? So, clash, what we want to do. Here's I'd say the clash focus. is this is the criteria for clash. If you're going to write anything down or take any screenshot, this is the one to do. It's a specific, practical, disputable policy that can get a majority in one sentence. Okay, it's just one sentence, but it's a very important sentence. All right, let's have someone read. Who's a volunteer to read? Let's go with Malaysia. You seem to have a good microphone.
Me?
Yes, you.
Clash specific, one clear interaction, particular real world manifestations, the disturbance, someone must disagree, get a majority, 50% one plus, one sentence, only one period.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, specific. One clear interpretation. We should understand one clear idea from it. If the wording is vague, it's not going to work. Practical. We need to do it in the real world. End all racism is not something we can do. Teach a class on water cleanness in high schools for 20 minutes, once a year, we can do. There's a difference. Disputable, very important. Someone must disagree. If no one else in the committee disagrees, no one is going to talk about it, which means your idea is not important. We're here to bridge the gaps. If, for example, we're talking about the Houthis' impact on trade routes, and I have a clash of let's teach the world about the importance of supply chains in high schools, people won't disagree that the importance of supply chains, exists, but it doesn't really solve the problem. No one's going to talk about it except for to say that it's completely irrelevant. If half the room disagrees and half the room supports your idea, there's a lot of life there, but it's hard to get it through. If no one disagrees, no one's going to talk about it. So someone needs to disagree with your clash. You read your clash and you say, who should disagree? Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll be off policy. But you need to give yourself the best chance. The sweet spot is about 70%. 70% of the room should agree with your clash, 30% should not. That means people will fight, but you still have a comfortable majority. But and the thing, by the way, the same thing, if I told you right now why breathing is important, and I spent an hour talking about why breathing is important, it's not like anyone was going to stop breathing without me talking about this. But I will tell you that if I talk about oxygen, the importance of air going like in through your nose or mouth, how long of me repeating that idea with examples and stories and movements will be before you get bored? Pretty fast, because we know that. Be kind to your audience and go where they don't know. Do not repeat all the damage of the Houthis' attacks. Don't give us examples of people who were hurt from waterborne diseases. We're solution-focused. Model UN is a policy-focused activity. Same thing here. One interpretation needs to happen in the real world. We can measure it. And if I can't touch it, it fails on the practical. If no country will disagree, it fails on the disputable. And you watch how your speech will become irrelevant. You need a lot of charisma to even keep it out there if no one disputes. But when someone disagrees, they're keeping your idea alive. You and those arguing with you need each other. Because right now, if we are deciding to boil water to get rid of diseases, you know what we're not talking about? Let's say right now Nigeria here says we should boil water. And I say boiling water is not effective. It's not going to cure the disease. We can't boil water. Like it's a hoax. People drinking are still going to get sick. You know what we're both doing? We're fighting and keeping our idea alive. You know what's not being talked about? Bringing in water from another country with a pipe. That person's clash is not being talked about. The ones who disagree with you in the beginning are very important to you. These are your friends. When you're fighting with someone, that means there is life to the idea. When no one talks about it, it's not relevant and falls away, and that's why disputable is so important. Get a majority, ideally looking at the map of the countries in the room, 50% plus one, means there's a chance. Okay, and one sentence. If you use the word and, not good. That's already potentially two clashes. Use the word but, you're probably canceling out your idea. So get specific, and follow these guidelines. If there's one thing I would say is important to take from that, it's this slide on clash. One sentence, but a very important sentence. And when you say it, people understand. They can disagree or agree because you were clear. Okay? Before I move on, any questions on this so far? All good? Okay, nod, yes? Okay, wonderful. Okay, so an example. Let's heal COVID-19. That's a very general idea. Let's give the newest vaccine shots to all doctors first. That's a clash. We see the difference? Let's help global trade. Let's clean the water. Let's bring peace to Vietnam. It's very general. We're not committing to anything. It's not even a clash because it's not what we want to do. Okay, let's move on to information. Hard facts and numbers. Information is why plus hard facts. And this is the key. It's not why we're solving the general problem. It's why we're solving the specific problem that our clash brings. Okay? So if I decide that I'm rerouting the global trade route, my information needs to talk about the people who were harmed trying to go through the Suez Canal, for example, or the straits that are nearby. So for this reason, you need to make sure that even when you're giving a specific clash, your information doesn't jump back to the general topic. You want the room to talk about what you are bringing. You want your idea to be one of those that's written down and voted on by majority. You want to make a difference. That's why your information needs to bring the topic to your area and not just stay floating on the general topic. Okay, so information are hard facts that show that what we're saying exists in the real world and is not just an opinion. And for us, information is numbers. Numbers make things the most real. Okay, there's a joke slide that I like here. Sarcasm doesn't get you anywhere. Well, it got me to the Sarcasm World Championship in Uruguay in 2018. Really? No. Okay? Now, you could have the same joke. Sarcasm doesn't get you anywhere. It got me the Sarcasm World Championship. Really? No. And that's the difference. The second you add Uruguay in 2018, it sounds more real. Numbers show that what you're doing is not something you're making up. So you must use at least one number in your information. This is like MUN law. Don't do that, and your speech seems much more floaty. Okay? No information. We will give the new vaccines to doctors. With information, we will give the first doses of the Pfizer Lambda vaccine to the 5,231 specialist doctors in 44 general hospitals around Israel. Which one of these seems more reliable? Like it's not even a competition. One of them looks researched because we scan it and we see, oh, not round numbers. Oh, words we don't know. Okay, and that's what makes it stand out. You want to give your speech that same power and punch. 2 quick notes. Number rules. 1, use whole, specific, unround numbers. Do not round the numbers and do not use percentages. Okay, let's look at why. Unround numbers are more persuasive. 10,000 police for 10,622 police. Our eyes look at zeros and we see generalization. Spend millions of dollars fixing the traffic accident, or 10,200,000 and $12. Not round makes a difference. Number 2, the problem with percentages is we don't know how to evaluate percentages. We don't know. 15% more students are on this Zoom call than this same workshop last year. What does that mean? Do you know how many people were here last year? Do you know how many people are on right now? Are we going to check? Exactly. I see some faces like, you're right. I don't know. We don't know what to do with percentages. Percentages are not a good tool to use in any speech, especially your speech. For example, 30% of the buses in Tel Aviv went on strike. What does that mean? Does that affect you? Does that seem large? Does it not? What if Tel Aviv has 5 buses? Who knows? So if you have to use percentages, the way to use them is connect them to a real number and explain it. But I would say don't even do that. Just use real numbers because those numbers people understand. They create impact. Percentages do not. So for example, 30% of the buses in Tel Aviv went on strike, which is 362 buses. Okay. And then if you want to make it real, 362 buses is a lot. That's 362 drivers. That's 18,100 people not going for a ride. Okay? 18,000 people, that's larger than some sports stadiums. Definitely larger than fits the entrance of your school. Okay? But that's a number. We understand. If I say right now, 15% more people were on the Zoom call than last year, that doesn't help. But if I say last year we had 60 people on the Zoom call and now we have 81, that clicks. Okay? So, moral story, don't use percentages. All right, let's move on to action. Okay, so clash, we understand. One sentence, a very important sentence. We start with it in the beginning. We make sure that people understand it clearly. If you make people wait for your clash, like in Hollywood movies where people, leave the punchline till the end, people won't be listening anymore. The good MUNers start with their clash, and it's just like a newspaper, like anything. You want people to stay interested? Think of all online videos you see. If the beginning's not good, we click off, we swipe 2 seconds. Same thing. People will listen as long as your speech is good. Clash, information, action, extra information. If you have anything like a quote or some other line, save it for the end. Okay, that's the place for it, not the beginning. Okay, action. How do we do this how thing? We said the what. We think our idea is clear. Redirect the boats, boil the water, So call to action is a practical solution of how to solve the issue you are discussing in numbered steps. Train yourself to use at least 3, and these steps need to lead into each other. They can't be steps which are 3 separate ideas. For example, we are going to redirect the Houthi shipping. We're going to redirect the ships. Hi, Robin. Nice to see you. All right, we have a new someone joining. Okay, so if I'm going to say we should redirect the ships, we should tell ships not to go into the area, and we should have maps draw that we shouldn't go into the zone, each one of these is a separate idea. Ships not going to the area, telling new ships not to drive, and redesigning the maps. Each one of these is a separate clash. So it's explaining how we're going to do it in more detail to make sure things aren't confused or lost. Okay? So call to action, the multiple steps of how is solving the issue. So for example, if our question is, who should get the Lambda vaccine first? Doctors, older people, the financial sector? The answer to that is the clash. Okay? In a call to action, how would we see this? Okay? If our clash is to give the vaccine to doctors first, step 1, divide the 5,000 and a bit COVID-19 booster vaccines between the 44 hospitals. A quarter of the specialist doctors are vaccinated each week because people take, a few days to get sick and get better. And in 1 month, all the doctors will have been vaccinated. Okay? So we see that? It's all connected to the same plan. We divide up the vaccines, we give a quarter each week with 1 month rotation until we complete it. That's the how. The how explains your what. It's not a bunch of other whats. If your how sentences seem like they could be clashes, they probably are. Okay? The rationale for this is that in the UN, the how is a question given to bureaucrats. They need instructions. Bureaucrats will carry them out. This is why the how needs to be clear. However, from our perspective, we want to also tell our fellow delegates, the other students, the committee, what our ideas are. And that's why they should be clear. Okay? Are there any questions on this before we see some examples? Okay, great. I'd like a volunteer to read. Alona Sakyum, can you read us a speech? USA. All right. Read us this speech.
Dear delegates, Brazil feels we should give a fine to the largest fishing companies that contribute to ocean microplastics.
Good.
Guanabara Bay in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, is the second most polluted. I'm sorry, I don't know how to read this word.
Okay. Guanabara Bay.
Guanabara Bay in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, is the second most polluted beach in the world receives 90 tons of garbage a day, or 7.2 city buses a day. Our plan is for each country to submit the list of their top polluters to the UN. Each company should then be fined $250,000 for each time they return any less than 90% of the microplastics they left with. Companies who fail over 10 times, I'm sorry, I can see yeah, thank you. Companies who fail over 10 times will have ships suspended.
Wonderful. Beautiful. Thank you, Alona. Okay, so I'll read through. First of all, there's a lot of information, right? We never knew anything about any of this, and suddenly we're getting packed with a whole big background on ocean microplastics. This is the purpose of an opening speech, that if I didn't read the study guide, I hear the speech, I'm like, wow, I have context. I have been shown a world of information here. This is the effect you want to have. You don't have to have it necessarily for AtidMUN, but your goal as you get better at Model UN is your opening speech should be able to go to a bunch of strangers, and by the end, they should know what you want to do and how you want to do it. Okay, so this is a lot of information. How many words do we think this speech is? Anyone want to guess?
About 90, 100.
90, 100. Anyone else? I want two
Maybe
more.
80.
80. All right. So first of all, okay, it's good you've all been paying attention, because you know I said 100's the magic word, the magic number. Yeah. Okay, well,
that was excellent.
Okay, so this is CIA in 94 words. 94 words. Very good job. So this is the kind of thing we want. In less than 100 words, we see a message that is very clear, giving a ton of information to the audience. Now let's look at the breakdown, okay? Brazil feels we must fine, tet knas, the largest fishing companies that contribute to ocean microplastics. That's number one, okay? So we understand you dump microplastics, you're going to get a fine. Okay, this is what Brazil wants to do. We can stop here and we understand that boats are getting fines. We can stop paying attention and we're good. Okay, next, information. What is the justification for giving the fines? Okay, now if the study guide talked about how fish eat microplastics and die, this is not the place to say that again, because the study guide just tells you the problem. It doesn't tell you how to solve it. That's why your information needs to be specific to your class. Your information should be something you found outside of the study guide, not in the study guide. So here, Brazil talks about Guanabara Bay. Have we never heard of it? Probably not. Okay, Rio de Janeiro, possibly. Brazil we have. The second most polluted beach in the world. Now, if they said Brazil has the second most polluted beach in the world, does that cover information according to CIA? Okay, whoever's shaking their head, nope, you are correct. Brazil has really polluted beaches is not information. It's just an opinion. But when we say we receive 90 tons of garbage a day, that's your number, 90 tons of garbage. The extra sentence, by the way, is done just to clarify what that means. That's 7.2 city buses. We don't know what 90 tons looks like, but we know what a bus full of garbage may look like. 7.2 city buses a day. A day, by the way, that's for dramatic effect. So within your 100 words, you do have a bit of space for style, but it shouldn't come at the expense of content. You could also cut that out. Okay? So we understand we're going to find the largest companies to contribute to ocean microplastics. Guanabara Bay in Rio de Janeiro is the second most polluted beach in the world, receiving 90 tons of garbage. That's 7.2 city buses a day. Our plan, now see how these all connect. One, each country submit a list of their top polluters. Say the trouble, who's already causing trouble? Each country should send in. Each company should then be fined for each time they come with less than 90% of the microplastics, or inspecting the ships to make sure that the garbage and things they took, they brought back in some kind of test. And they get a fine every time they have less than 10% missing. Companies who fail over 10 times will have their ships frozen. Ships are very expensive things. Once you have a ship, you want it running all the time, doing its special ship stuff. So we see here there's a list. Find the polluters, fine them, and suspend ships, which is not what any company wants to do when their ship is working. You know, some of the ships have to cover a minimum just to cover their cost and the fuel cost and whatever else that it might be. So we see here how this all ties into itself. And this is what you'd like for your CIA speech. Okay, so here, to review. Clash, 1 line. Information, 2 lines. Actions, 3+ lines. It explains how you're going to do the what in 100 words that you can comfortably say. Will you say absolutely everything you need to? Probably not. Good information in your research, make a little page, call them fact sheets, and you can use them throughout your speeches. But your first speech needs to be slow and well delivered, so people then want to hear your later speeches. In Model UN, you don't speak just once. You get to speak again and again and again. If you keep picking your hand up, always have your hand in the air, always speak and repeat your ideas, and eventually they'll become part of the discourse. Okay, so are there any questions on clash, information, action? Any questions at all? Now is the time. Right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. On the example that you gave, you gave a percentage number that you said we shouldn't put.
There's no percentage in the example.
No, less than 90% of the microplastics they left with.
Ah, okay. That's totally fair. Excellent. I like that. So I agree that I think in this case, as a choice, as some kind of measure, because each ship it changes and ship sizes change. I'd say if it's in your call to action, then it can be acceptable if it's for like a scalable thing. But it should never be in your information. Information should never have percentages, which are not explained. In the call to action, I'd say like if it's like this where the ship size changes and you only have this kind of measure, then I'd say it's acceptable, but try to avoid it. But anyway, very good. First time I've had that question. Okay, are there any other questions?
Yes, I
Yes.
wanted to ask in the example you gave in the information you gave an example from like Brazil, so it's example from their own country. Could I give an example from another country in my speech?
Excellent. So first of all, this is a really good question, and I'll answer it in 2 ways. There's like the simple MUN way is yes, you can bring example from your country, from another country. It should be a country you're friendly with or that strengthens your case, but you are in no way married to giving things specifically about your country. However, if you do bring example of your country, it should be to teach people more about your country. There's a more advanced Model UN class, which we talk about how to represent your country, because sometimes you can give an opening speech, which is great, but doesn't say anything about you because you still only have 100 words. So if your information can be about you and teach about you, great. It doesn't have to be. What's more important is the information is strong for what it is that you want to do. For example, if you're France, who have, active military in Africa, and we're talking about the Houthis and their trade routes, you don't want to bring examples of things happening back in France because the issue is happening in Yemen, in that part of the world. So that makes sense. So here, Brazil using their own country as an example makes sense because the policies will help Brazil, and Brazil is a country in question. But sometimes you have to connect yourself in other ways. So you do not have to use your own country. It is good to introduce your country eventually in one of your later speeches so people know why you have the opinion you do. But it doesn't have to come in the opening speech. All right, we'll have one more question if we have one. All right, seeing no more questions, if people have in the end and there's time, I'm happy to give some questions. Bronya wanted me to talk about position papers. Bronya, does everyone have to write one?
No.
Bronya, you here? Okay, Secretary General, anyone?
Yes, yes, yes. What's the
Everyone,
question?
everyone has to write papers?
Sorry?
Everyone has to write position papers?
Not everyone. It's not obligatory. It's like we advise, because the moment they write the position paper, so they know everything about their country's policy and the problems and how the country solves the problems.
Okay.
And it's very easy from there to get to the opening statement of policy.
All right. Well,
And
you and I can
also,
discuss. I mean, the second they're optional, though, it's not always fit in with the last minutes of things. But that is a Bronya decision. Okay, so we're going to teach this. If you'd like to do it, you're welcome to. Are there awards for papers if people do submit them?
Yes, there are awards for position papers between the people that submit, like for each
yes,
committee.
in each committee, for each
That's pretty
committee, yeah.
cool. That means you could be the only one to submit, and then you'll get the award. Actually, I would probably say qualitatively, if they all suck, maybe none should get an award. But that's already Yuval and Bronya and the team's decision. So writing position papers. In the spirit of limited time, I want.
No, we have time. Like you have still, you can take 20 minutes more.
Okay, I'm just saying, like I'm trying to take 3-hour lessons and fitting them into.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, just
Okay.
a second before Daniel starts his just great presentation. Like before you go to the breakout rooms, Yuval will open our site, and there in the resources you have the template for the beginners, for the position paper for the beginners. There are questions, and also the template for the intermediate and advanced. And the moment you answer all these questions, you know everything about the topic. Okay. So Daniel, continue.
All right. Thank you, Bronya. Thank you, Yuval. Okay. So, position papers. If you have time to work on them, they are very helpful. Also, because I'm going to put this into the chat. Send to meeting group chat. Okay, so this is the article that I'm going to be going over. If you want to look at an in-depth guide on how to write position papers, this is the place to do it. And give you our speech writing article. Okay, AtidMUN opening speech guide and examples. Okay, let's just make sure you have that. Here we go. Okay, so position papers. What is a position paper and why are these important today? So position papers for many Model UN conferences outside of our lovely country are mandatory. So how to write a position paper is probably the most popular article on many an MUN website. The one I sent you is WiseMe. It's a website that myself and a friend created when we were active delegates, with the purpose of taking the collective knowledge of our friends and making it available. So MUN position papers usually have 3 parts that are different from an opening speech in a few ways. And I'm going to spend the time that we have illustrating the differences. Because when we speak, reading what we say when we speak, which is usually simplified, abbreviated, and built for human ears, can be not very stimulating to read. At the same time, if you read the page of a book, you may lose your audience because reading and speaking, or written word and spoken word, are not the same thing. So your position paper needs to have a different focus from the beginning. Okay, so position papers. Actually, let me see if I can make this larger. So position papers are documents that are going to have 3 parts, but it's not clash information and action. The focus on it is, second, hopefully this works. Okay, great. Let's go back to our screen. All right, I had the slideshow more available than I remembered. Okay, so or not. Oh, it's not loading. Okay, so position paper or policy paper is a one-page document that presents your country's stance on the issue or topic your committee is going to be discussing. Position papers are where you do research. It helps you sort your thoughts and gives you an early presentation of ideas to your chairs. Yuval, are the chairs going to be reading the position papers before the conference?
Yeah, they're also going to give out the awards.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so exactly as I said, a position paper can be a place where you can share your ideas with your chair before you even meet your chair. Will the position papers also be shared with other delegates?
No, they won't. I mean, it's going to be in a folder where they upload it. They can look, but where it's like it's not going to be intentionally shared.
Got it. Okay, wonderful. Okay, so the goals of a position paper are as follows. There's more time because an opening speech is 100 words and a full A4 page is more like 500 words. So you have time to give a lot more information. And writing a good position paper also means you're going to need to find more information. So the goal of position paper is show your country's unique understanding of the issue being discussed. For example, if we're talking about the Houthis in Yemen, which is, actually, I'll say the three and then we'll look at the map. Show your country's unique understanding of the issue discussed. Show your country's previous relationship with the topic, preferably with relevant examples. And three, show policies and ideas that your country would like to see in the resolution. So these are the three sections of a position paper, and we call it PREP. Position, relation, extra, and proposal. These are essential parts, and PREP will help you remember the formula. Position is your view of the topic being discussed. Relation is your connection, okay? And they're not necessarily the same, and I'll explain why. Extra is the paragraph for extra information. And fourth is the practical policies that you want to see in the resolution. This is the place you would put your call to action, possibly with more detail and more explanation. Okay? So taking this, let's look at an example together. Like, I think we get the concepts, and you have the article if you want to read about this further. Okay, so let's say right now we're looking at, let's get up a map. Okay, so if we're looking at the Houthis' attacks on trade ships in the Gulf of Aden. One sec, let's share a screen. Okay, so if we're looking over here at this part of the world, okay, now we don't know, we didn't research very much on this topic unless you're the committees who have, but we know a few things. One, if Yemen has people attacking ships coming through here, trying to get through the Red Sea and the Suez Canal, okay? If we're imagining stakeholders, we can see that here Djibouti and Eritrea could also possibly be hit by the Houthis. If we could also guess that they're probably not the companies sending ships in the same way, because they could send things maybe over land, through Egypt. There might be some other way to connect things from the south to the north. So these countries, when they're talking about attacking the shipping, they might talk about their own safety. They might talk about how the war spills into their country, maybe how militants get into their country. Saudi Arabia and Oman may also have similar positions. At the same time, if we zoom out to the wider world, we have countries that are sending shipping through the Gulf, okay? Because if you don't go through the Suez Canal, you have to go all the way around Africa to bring things to Europe. So you can see why Yemen and all of these different places, if we're sending a ship from India, from Indonesia, from China, they can either go through the Gulf of Aden through the Suez Canal by Egypt, or they have to go all the way around Africa. So we can see why it's a lot cheaper and easier to do that. Now, a country like China, for example, or Vietnam, countries that have production would have a very different issue than the countries bordering Yemen. So if we're going back with this in mind, if we're going back to the PrEP case study, okay, so the position part, before we even talk about ourselves, if we're going to make this up, let's say right now position as China we would talk about the negative impact of terrorism on global trade. We would bring examples of maybe the recent war in Yemen and how much shipping was never reached where it was supposed to, whether it was attacked or slowed down. Now, the reason that the position paper would structure it like that is because China is not the only country sending ships. We want the vote of every country who gets shipping, and we want the vote of every country not receiving shipping. And that's why it's so important that our view of the issue being discussed applies to as many as possible. So in your position paper, your first paragraph shouldn't mention yourself, should mention the global problem in the largest catch-all way possible. Your relation, the second paragraph, is where China can talk about their own trade, their own loss, themselves as a unique example. If China, by the way, starts, if China was going to start in the beginning, just talking about their own issues, other people, the US, Russia, India, they may turn off going, okay, that's a China, it's a you problem. That's a you thing. But like, this is something much bigger than your own problem. And they have to make up their own interpretation. With the position paper, whether it's for the chair or with everyone else, you're trying to sell others on your version of the problem. Because if we're talking about the inability to get trade through, we're not talking about the military threats on countries nearby. If right now, for example, Djibouti would be writing about it, they'd say our fishing ships are getting shot at. We need protection for our small vessels. We think our call to action should be giving additional weapons and boats to countries immediately nearby, instead of stopping the Houthis militarily or protecting the larger ships. This could go in many different directions, and that's where the opening speeches will come to challenge each other. So your view is something you wouldn't write in an opening speech. You don't have time for that. But in a position paper, you do. Your opening speech, straight to the solution. What, why, how? In your position paper, you're there to persuade on your position. Also, like Bronya said and Yuval said, this is very useful for your research. If you write a good position paper, you'll be in a much better position for everything else. It's optional, but you do get awards, which is nice. Okay, extra. If you have information you think is useful and doesn't fit in the other three, that's up to you. The extra paragraph does exist for that. For example, if we talk about the countries funding the Houthis, if our policy is focusing on protecting shipping, but we're saying as a secondary policy, maybe we want to stop the people funding this war, like Iran and other such countries, that could be in the extra paragraph. Not as important as global shipping, but something we'd like people to know. So that's something to keep in mind. However, important to remember, and I'd say last important tip for position papers, your proposal, your call to action is the most important part of your speech and the most important part of your position paper. Don't write 2 paragraphs and leave 3 lines for this. The proposal the policy needs to take up 1/3 of your page. Relation, position, extra, 2/3 max. If you want to put an extra, comes out of one of the other 2. Because we're focusing on solutions. Model UN is focusing on solutions, us learning how to solve problems, fix problems. We're not focusing on repeating the problem that we already know exists and we can imagine within 2 seconds. We have great imaginations. I say earthquake, I say volcano, tell you where, that's it. I don't need to describe what it's like to have people, falling into lava. How do we solve this? How do we help them? How do we stop? That's where our mind is going. And that's what we're waiting for people to tell us. Okay, so that's the very quick overview of position paper. Do people have any questions on position papers? All right, wonderful. So that's a quick recap of some final words before we sum up. The call to action in your opening speech can be the proposal section of a position paper. There is some overlap, but you have time to develop it more. So that way, during the unmods or the free lobbying time you can explain it in more detail because you'll know it. So a position paper is a good extra thing to have, and you do have a few weeks. If you have time, I think it's a good thing to write. It's good practice. You have both of the links in the chat, which you are all welcome to take and use and share, and there's also other great stuff there. So
the
that's
delegates
it.
have time. The delegates have time because the submission date is the 23rd of November. And it's just a great also, Yuval will show later on our site, like the templates and the examples of a few examples of the position papers for all levels. And also like we will send the links where to send the email of the committees a bit later in the community, in the committees. Don't forget to join the community, the committees, okay? And like it's only like a win-win ticket. You will see. The moment you just write the position paper, you find all the answers to these questions. You've done your research. You write like practically your policy and the opening statement are ready. And then you will also, it will be the springboard for you coming up with the solutions, effective solutions to the problem.
Wonderful. Okay, so thank you, Bronia. Thank you, everyone. My name is Daniel Gindis from Ambassador Academy. I look forward to seeing you at the conference, unless you are in one of the schools that we teach at, in which case our trainers or people probably see you sometime soon. And that's it. So we'll turn you over to Bronia, and we'll look forward to seeing you all soon at the conference.
Okay, now we're moving to the second part. Yuval, please share this.